We have 8 hours ahead of. We have 8 hours if we need to. Is that working on YouTube?
That's just the introductory ceremony.
Usually, yeah. Our discussions take much longer than that, and for some reason, it seems like it's not broadcasting on YouTube. Is it? No, it should be. All right, I'll just trust that it's working. The agenda today calls for first a guest item, the discussion about the Cosmic Hub, which we'll get started with right away. After that, we'll go for the Community Council statement, followed by a question about the Global Summit and do we need any action to take any action, and then we'll finish with our regular bi-weekly schedule of a secretary report by Jillian, chair report by Michael, and treasurer report by myself. So with no further delay, let's start with the guest item, the Cosmic Hub. Shall we start with a quick presentation of your proposal, Magali?
Yeah. So basically the idea is to create another non-physical hub based on my experience of the Nomad Hub, my personal experience, and also some conversation I had with different people, sandboxers, whether inside the Nomad Hub or in different hubs. And the problem, if you can say that,
right.
it's about the sense of identity that I noticed, and like in the Nomad Hub, I joined the Nomad Hub because I right now I'm living in a small city, so I don't have a hub. And I realized with the activity of the Nomad Hub that I was not really fitting there. And I was missing the sense of, like belonging that I would have in other hubs. And with conversation with Julian about it, we were talking about the difference of being like a nomad because there is the nomad lifestyle, or just hubless people that just happen to be there. And something I found interesting, like I was sharing, is that what unites people usually in hubs is a sense of common identity or something they have in common. And just having like a hubless hub is something you don't have in common, and it's not very, like I say, appealing to share something you don't have in common. Like the only thing that brings you together is to have nothing. It's not really something people can emotionally link to, and that was some kind of struggle also within the Nomad Hub sometimes to engage people, because the people who actually are more present or the more engaged are the people who feel like they really relate to that nomad identity, and the others are just there because they're just there. So then also I was bringing in that conversation my own interest and I would say, I don't know, desires, yeah, let's say this, that I would actually love to have a hub where I could relate. And because in my own experience, like I'm in Sandbox in 2009, I've been living every year in different city, and so I've been in different hubs. And actually, like what I don't relate myself as a nomad, but I relate myself as someone that is like just based in some physical place, but it doesn't really matter. And I think my life is going to be like this more and more of us also sandboxers, we live our life like this. And then, yeah, like the Cosmic Hub, the idea, the name is still a working title, but the idea is like to bring together it was like what name to give to this proposal. So yeah, there was a working title. And yeah, like the idea is to bring together the people who are working, like from who their basis of the work is personal work. So then the change they do within will be a change that has impact outside as well. So and I think a lot of people relate to that. So some people do that, and it's interesting when you can bring people who relate to the same thing together, how they can actually really support each other. So that actually goes with what you were sharing with me with this initiative that I don't know much about, but I'm curious to know. yeah, so that was the proposal. I'm very looking forward to know you guys what you think about it. I'm open for like modification, of course, and I'm questioning about the Nomad Hub itself, like if there is like because it's going to be difficult to change the identity of the Nomad Hub because it's already there now, and even though the identity is not supposed to be focused so much on nomadism, I don't know, like there are many different points of view on that. The thing is, there is a reality, and it's complicated to change people. Let's say saying no, what you are doing now it's wrong. Let's just do something else. Like I don't say it like this. That's why also I thought that creating something new from scratch could also just be clearer on the purpose of being together and what is this new identity, what is this new hub about, instead of trying to shift or do modification on something that is already existing. So yeah, basically that's it. If you have any question, I'm happy to give more info.
Michael, do you want to start?
Well, I really appreciate you bringing the proposal to us. I think it's awesome, and I appreciate you going through the process of the proposal. I think, like, in general, I see this as part of a broader conversation of what does it mean for a member to identify with the community, with a group, with a subject matter, with a topic, within a sort of avenue of inquiry. And I think, this is something that I think we at the board level and at the community level have thought a lot about, which is like, how do we channel these different areas of interest or ways of identification within the community? How do we let people find those that they feel aligned with and connected with and can share projects, can share aspirations, can share endeavors with? And what does it mean to sort of satisfy that more generally? And I guess I think our job as the board is always to take these particular questions. So you're sharing with us your journey through Sandbox, your journey through the Nomad Hub, and try to think about, like, what does that relate to? What is like the bigger picture item here? How can we generalize that? Because when you tell me this story, I think, okay, well, to what extent are we solving this problem for other people in general? Like, do people in my own hub in San Francisco feel that level of identification with their hub? Do people in other hubs, we hear stories often of people feeling more at home in one hub versus another. So I guess that would be my question to you, which is like, how do you think of the concept of identity with respect to hubs more generally? And what would you think would be the best way to achieve the goal of creating spaces within the community where people can find that kind of alignment, can find those shared spirits where their sense of connection can be developed? Because I guess the one thing that maybe doesn't resonate that you said with me is that, like, these other hubs have more positive forms of identity. I don't know if that's the case. Like, Jillian at some point described the Nomad Hub as sort of like just a bucket, or maybe a more negative word, for people that like don't belong anywhere else. And I sort of think of the San Francisco hub as a bucket for people who don't live anywhere other than San Francisco, and like the DC hub as a bucket for that. You know what I mean? And so I guess I love the ambition and the goal. And my question is, like, how do you think we could solve it more generally, given that a lot of people have the experience of maybe finding that special group of people that they align with, and like that idea or that shared inquiry at the retreat or at an event or at the global summit, and finding kind of like a pod of people that are on that same journey, but maybe don't find that experience at the hub level.
That's a very interesting question, and we actually talk about it with Matt Hunter. He's in New York right now, and I think with Ben as well, from Lisbon, about the fact that there are some people, actually, as you say, like they are in a physical hub, but they don't relate to that hub so much. And so yeah, I think this is a very interesting question. And can we open this flexibility to allow people to choose their home hub, even though it doesn't belong. Like, for example, me, if I talk right now about my favorite hub, it would be the Portuguese hub. Like, this is where I really feel I belong. It was my latest hub before I become hubless again. And yeah, I'm active there. Like, there are questions going on in the WhatsApp group. I'm always participating as if I would be living there. So I don't know, like maybe that would be interesting to ask every member if they have a hub that they relate more to, and to let them be there no matter where they live. Could be this, could be that option. It depends, because I know, like, from the history of Sandbox, the physical location was super important to help people come together. I see Luke doing that. I don't know.
I'll come in afterward with my governance deep dive afterward, and I'll explain why I disagree with that. But
okay, cool. Thank you. I'm curious to hear that. But yeah, like that was my understanding, at least, that's for sure. I can only talk about my own perspective. And so yeah, I don't know about all hubs, but I know I've had a lot of interesting conversation with Leila and Ben, who are both ambassadors in their own cities, about how to like get people engaged and how to then bring them together. I think the diversity is also very important, you know, like it's not about a hub. It's not only about bringing like-minded people together. It's about having something in common that we believe we share, like an identity. That's how I called it. But then it's interesting to have different people, because it's not about only bringing the same people together. Otherwise, you don't have so much challenge and exchange and discovery. I mean, when you go in a city, you have a lot of people with different interests, and what they share is the city. So what I would like to do with the Cosmic Hub is like what we share is like this sense of like the importance of actually grounding yourself within yourself. That would be the common identity. And then from there, we have a lot of different person and different approaches and different interests, and that like people might not work together especially, but they still have this common understanding, this common culture, this common identity. So that's what I like. My vision about hubs are about this, like having a common culture within the Sandbox culture, of course. And what I was sharing also earlier is that for me also, like a hub, what is interesting in a hub, like why would be interesting to have this hub, is also when it comes to the recruitment process. Like when I took part only a bit in the new class for the Nomad Hub, and as a new person, I didn't say a lot of my voice, because I was more here to help, and I didn't want to impose things. But I really sense like some criteria. This is only my personal views, but I'm sharing them as my personal views. Were really oriented about diversity and like finding people from remote places and cultural aspect that are, I think, very valid criteria. But for me, it was then maybe putting aside some people who were a little bit more normal to come into the Nomad Hub, because the Nomad Hub was like really about like exciting places or different like nomad people. And I found it a little bit of pity, but I mean, I was thinking, if this is the identity of the Nomad Hub, of course it's important to put forward those aspects in the new applicants. But then some other applicants who were just like normal, like me, I guess, not so exotic, I would have not come inside the Nomad Hub if I would have applied through the Nomad Hub. I would have not come into Sandbox because I would have been rejected of the Nomad Hub. That's what I mean. So yeah, that's also a question I want to raise. Yeah.
But it strikes me there's like a lot of value in that tension, and the idea that hubs are not necessarily like units of identity or value. So for instance, just analogizing it to the hub that I'm most active in, San Francisco. And, you know, to some extent, I empathize with what you're saying. Like I spent less than 3 months in San Francisco last year, and the rest of the time, like, you know, living in different places as one does. And yet I also didn't necessarily like feel like there's all this sort of, you know, extra identity around the Nomad Hub that I just felt like, well, you know, I'm just like someone from the San Francisco Hub that spends most of his time traveling. I don't need to like, I don't need to express my identity in the form of a hub affiliation. That seems like I'm above all a sandboxer, you know, and like what I love is the community, and the hub is just a practical organizational thing that we've sort of like set up the community around. But it's not how I, or even you, and you're telling your story, primarily experience Sandbox. You experience it through the people you meet and love, the conversations that you have. And there are some places that are more fertile for that, and others that maybe you feel a little less at home. I think if you think about it, like, I'm very grateful in the San Francisco hub that there's this constant tension between all of the entrepreneurship and tech people, and then people of different backgrounds. And being involved in many of the recruitment sessions, there's often that push and pull where it's like, no, we have too many tech people, or, oh no, but you know, we need to have space for that. That's part of our culture. And the culture of what the hub is not a firm, formalized thing. It's very much in play. It's a sort of living negotiation among members who have different sets of interests. And I'm kind of grateful for that, because it means that Sandbox remains, like you say, almost a city within a city, of this kind of diversity and this kind of like non-specific set of identity. And in fact, I joined Sandbox in DC in 2009. But I got especially engaged when I first moved to San Francisco, and I was like working in tech and surrounded by tech people. And I loved the fact that I could go to this community that didn't have such a formalized identity around a particular set of interests, but rather was this rich hotbed of different ideas and different perspectives, and, you know, people working on reinventing capitalism, and people working on design, and, you know, people as entrepreneurs, and you know, people who are writers, like, and I love that. And so I think I like the ideas you're talking about creating these spaces where we can find those conversations we really want. I would love to see that happen. And it's actually been something that I and other members of the board have proposed and discussed for me for years. And so I want to see some version of this happen. The question for me is the hub the right place to do that? And we've seen the proliferation and the growth of really active interest groups that maybe are hubs in themselves. Like, there's a cryptocurrency group that has a super active WhatsApp group that has their own meetings, that has their own events, their own. Margot in Berlin started this freelance group for people working in freelance, and, you know, has you know, panel discussions and things like that. And I think there's such an opportunity to explore this and maybe formalize it, and maybe even have these groups that have ambassadors, maybe even call them hubs. But, you know, when you're talking about the Nomad Hub and talking about, oh, well, you know, even in the recruiting, they're starting to optimize for this certain set of people, you know, that just reminds me of all the times I've done recruitment and applications in DC and San Francisco and helped out in other hubs, and how much there needs to be that kind of push-pull and that negotiation for a diverse set of people. And I agree, it's hard to change people's mind, but maybe the Nomad Hub has sort of allowed itself to become too much a reflection of one value. And that happened in San Francisco, actually, when I first joined the San Francisco hub. And we have Erin, I think, on the call who can talk to this, because she was part of reinventing the San Francisco hub as ambassador here. When I came, it was almost all tech dudes, you know? And we went from 2 tech male ambassadors to 2 women ambassadors who were not like deep tech people. And suddenly the whole culture of the community really changed. It got much richer. And it was such a stronger community for that, because you could experience just a much wider variety of different people, and you could find your place in it. And what a shame it would be for a brilliant young designer to meet the San Francisco hub years ago and find all these tech dudes and say, you know, this isn't a place for me. When the reality is Sandbox is a place for you, and the hub is just the way we kind of instrument it. It's the way we give sort of governing structure to it, and the way we allow people to create spaces. But even within hubs, you know, within San Francisco, there's, and in DC, there's, you know, events on this, events on that, events that focus one value, events that focus another. So I think we have these dueling goals of, as you said yourself, creating these diverse city-like spaces where it's almost this like exciting exploration when you first join. And it's like, wow, who am I going to meet? I'm going to meet all these different types of people, and retaining that, while also enabling, as you say, people to find that place of identity, and to find that connection. I want to see both goals served. And like, that's the conversation I think we should have in as open and explorative way as possible is like, what does it mean to do that? And I'm sure Luke wants to jump in, so I'll shut up after this. But there's also the question of like what that looks right now. And then as we explore concepts of future governance, how do we incorporate those ideas? And I think Luke and Daniel Ospina have worked on proposals around that. I push forward a vision around these like topic area hubs. Maybe Luke, you want to share more about what you've been thinking about, or just your general reaction?
Yeah, of course. So when I saw your proposal, Magadi, it was, I mean, it really brought out, I think, a larger discussion around that we've been talking about quite a lot with the governance proposal groups, and that has to do with the definition of what a hub and an ambassador is, but specifically in this case, the hub definition. So the first thing is that what I discovered with hubs and ambassadors is that, and that was talking with Christian Bush, is that that notion of having local hubs is something that kind of came as a necessity rather than really a design. The idea of Sandbox at the beginning was really to be a completely decentralized, not decentralized, but a completely non-localized movement. It was like a group of people that were all all existing online, meeting up wherever they would meet, but there was not that idea of having, the Paris hub, the DC hub, the San Francisco hub. And it's only later on that I guess Fabien and Nico at the time, when they initiated that hub structure, came up to a conclusion that they really needed that organization, as Michael said, that organizational level at the local level. That why it's a geographical hub, I think it's more practical than anything else. It's the fact that people in a place meet up more easily, even with today with the Hangouts and all those virtual stuff. So that's why the idea of geography became that organizational level with hubs. But it once again was really much more of a necessity thing. I think the Nomad Hub is a really good idea. I mean, Nomad Hub but I see it. But I think we've never touched that discussion. But I've always seen the Nomad Hub as a only defined as people who do not want to be attached with a geographical hub for whatever reason, because there's no geographical hub next to them, because they don't go that often into a location that could become kind of their geographical home, or by philosophy, because really even though they live in Paris, I don't know, they live in San Francisco, they feel like they are they don't feel like attaching themselves to a place. Whichever one of those three motivations you have, that's what I put in the Nomad Hub. And just like Michael said, the Nomad Hub has an identity the same way the Paris Hub has an identity, or the San Francisco Hub has an identity, or in Le Mans, the Le Mans Hub has an identity. It's something that's created by the people that are part of that hub, and people are in this hub because they've chosen this place as their home. There are some members of geographical hubs that are not necessarily living in that geographical location. I think Daniel Ospina had this point where even though he lives in Portugal at the time, he probably feels closer to if he lives in London at the moment, he probably feels closer to the Bogota hub in Colombia, and so he actually feels much more of a Bogota hub member in a similar fashion as you do, because he participates with them, discusses, he probably visits quite often, than actually really a London hub member. So the geographical thing to me is not is purely administrative. It is more of an administrative and organizational need. So what I haven't explained is why I actually think that we need this organizational need is that not everything can be done when we have a big community. We need, and not that big of an administration. We need some level of decentralization for recruitment, for managing members, for managing also like remotivating people to participate. There's and also to kind of give a pulse of what's going on with the community. And it's much easier to do it with people that are in contact with, a smaller group of 10, 20, 30, 40 people than to have 3 people on the board try to reach out to 1,500 people. And that's why it's really useful to have this decentralized organizational level. Now, what we've been proposing after this long introduction, what we've been proposing in what we are proposing right now in this governance model that we're going to move or start proposing and pushing to the community in the next few weeks, hopefully, is to have a new kind of hub. So have geographical hubs are a necessity. It's kind of like you are part of only one hub as a full member. It's your quote unquote home. Doesn't necessarily mean that you feel connected with everybody in this hub, but it's your home. It's kind of like your administrative home. You can be, of course, a guest in any other geographical hub as you want. And next to that, we have a different kind of hub, which are like what we call either initiative, interest, whatever you want. It's just a group of sandboxers that get together to push some ideas that they have in common, things that they want to do in common and discuss or anything. This second type of hub is more of a group, a working group. We're calling them hub because we want to give them kind of a similar level of importance as the geographical hub. But at the same time, it's something. Those initiatives hubs are something you can be part of as many as you want, and it's much more of a you finding people that you are willing to spend more time and do things together. So those initiative hubs are on the side, and here that's where, to me, the Cosmic Hub fits better. But at the same time, and I'll be happy to have Jillian also discuss, the Nomad Lifestyle Hub, to me, is also an initiative hub. It shouldn't be a geographical hub. And so, of course, the discussions in the currently Nomad Geographical Hub or non-place hub will be. I mean, the discussions in there will tend toward, the culture in there will tend towards nomadism or cosmic or whatever other idea might come up. But that will be a tension, as Michael defined, a tension between the different people inside this group, this geographical hub. So to summarize, after my long, I tend to do that all the time, so sorry, Michael and Jillian are used to it, but to summarize, the geographical hub, I think, should just be a non-place hub, where the culture of the hub is moving, changing. And on the side, we should have a nomad lifestyle and a cosmic hub, which are like those interest hubs, where members from the non-place nomad hub, geographical hub, and any other members from any other, because I think that a lot of people that are attached, that feel at home in the San Francisco DC hub, like Michael, also feel like, well, what they do is actually quite nomadic. And so they'd be really happy to have those discussions in those interest hubs about nomad life or cosmic life or cosmic lifestyle, no matter how we define it. And so that difference, the separation between those two groups is something that Michael has been talking about for a long time, and that we will try to push much more we want to push much more forcefully and organize our community Sandbox as around.
Can I jump? Oh, never mind.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add something, but you can talk. I don't know.
I just wanted to chime in about my experience. I'm Erin. I ran the SF Hub with Michelle. So I think the core, like if Sandbox were described as let me know if the internet's bad. I'm in Poland. The internet's terrible. I think the core experience, if we were described Sandbox as like an app, right? Like the Facebook post, the Snapchat snap, the core experience of Sandbox that makes it beautiful is the meaningful conversation. And I'm super curious to learn about the Nomad Hub and whether or not the Nomad Hub, by sheer fact that they don't have in-person conversations that are long and like you can build trust and actually share meaningful things, if like that is what's wrong with the Nomad Hub, or why people feel less connected to it. I think it's natural that you have meaningful conversations with people who share your topic, like cryptocurrencies. I think it's natural. You might have more meaningful conversations with certain people than others, which is why you might feel more at home in one community than another. What Michelle and I did when we came into Sandbox SF was all we did, like all our job was to create opportunities, frequent opportunities, and like opportunities where people felt like they could trust the other people to have meaningful conversations. It's like literally all we did. And then like I think we talk about identity too much in this world. I think everything's a fucking identity. Like you can't even like use the internet with having a fucking identity that you have to like assign yourself to. And so what's beautiful about Sandbox is you do get to meet all these really different people who also think deeply and feel deeply and care deeply about various passions. You get to learn about other people and relate in different ways. It's like interesting. And it's less about identity and more about like having the space and opportunity to have a really meaningful conversation that helps you help someone else and also helps you grow as a person. So that would be my 2 cents, just on like what I feel about. I think like there are so many ways I think that you're all doing that can help encourage meaningful conversation. And one thing I think about the offline community the online community interactions, are that online community interactions are just really horrible replacements for meaningful conversations. So if you don't encourage a lot of active in-person engagement or like video conversation, then it's really difficult to build a strong community because you just can't have a really meaningful conversation on Facebook.
Yeah. Jillian, I think you said that you commented that you wanted to, or you could fill us in on the Nomad Hub since you were part of the first class.
Yeah, so I mean, I came in the very first class of the Nomad Hub, and I've also been the ambassador for 2 years, so I can talk a little bit about how it works and what's going on, and also the views on this initiative. So essentially, I think that when you talk about words and how, you know, whether it's identities or not, the Nomad Hub was named as such. I'm not sure who named it, but it was named as such, and it automatically coats the hub with an expectation of who is in it and the kind of conversations and the kind of person who is in it, and that's and that is the nomadic lifestyle because of the name of the hub. And the first ambassadors of this new hub were Seb and Alicia, who exemplify the nomad existence. And so they, as the ambassadors under the name of a nomad hub, obviously it's going to be focused on that kind of lifestyle more than anything else. So when I joined hubless. I wasn't nomadic. I was based, in Seoul, and I just didn't have a hub. And so I came in as the ambassador to try and do exactly what Aaron is pointing out. If there's going to be a virtual hub, and it seemed that there was a need for it because there were sandboxers or sandboxer types who did not fit into a geographical hub, or who did, if the geographical hub was a necessity, then there was this question of what about the other people who might fit with this community but are not connected to a geographical location, whether they don't have a hub or they just are not in anywhere long enough to make a hub. And so I started experiments from the beginning to try and build these relationships. And I do think it's, meaningful conversations are necessary, but you can have meaningful conversations online. And we've been working on how do you curate this feeling of community. So been lots of experiments in terms of coming together for hangouts, or the buddy system where you are assigned a buddy every month, and then that moved to the larger network. So that's the global buddy system, but the Nomad Hub has been doing it for about a year or more. And recently we've been doing story halls, which is online events to know each other through our stories and sharing our reflections. And the WhatsApp group is full of this sharing reflections and vulnerabilities, which perhaps is not the point, and it perhaps is not what Sandbox is all about. And it needs to be physical.
in which case there is no place for a virtual hub. But if there is a place for a virtual hub, then I think in this case, perhaps it needs to be rebranded with a name that is more neutral and does not automatically coat it with a certain expectation of who's part of it. And I think, Magali, perhaps some of the tension or pity that you felt in the applications came from that. If it's the Nomad Hub and most of the ambassadors, I would say 3 of 4 are nomadic, that's what was being focused on, is this nomadic lifestyle. And we were also trying to reach out for lots of diversity just because we felt that Sandbox needed it. So that was that. It was kind of our conceit, I suppose you could say, for this round of applications. So I think I agree that the initiative hubs, the Nomad Hub would be an initiative hub, and I think that's a good place for it, as with the Cosmic Hub. But the Nomad Hub itself probably needs to change its name, and in this case, something that will not bring its own expectations with it. And I think it's actually a good time to do this with the governance coming, and also I'm planning to step down as Nomad Ambassador within the next month or so, just because I can barely handle myself in Pakistan, let alone have all the Sandbox work on the side. So I think it'd be a good time to open these conversations in the hub and to maybe find some ambassadors who are willing to help oversee this change and etc. So I think it's a good time for it. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, actually, all of you, for everything that you shared. I think it's, as Julian just said, it's maybe an interesting moment to bring change with all these organizations. From what I understand with everything that you shared, and especially also Luc about the initiatives, my feeling about it is the initiative should not be called hub. Just because of what we were saying. I'm going to explain further. For me, a hub is a home. And we were talking about this. We need people to be attached for, how do you say, logistic and administration issues, to be attached to somewhere. And the hub is a home where people are there. They are like pointed there. I don't know, yeah. Sign up there. And then a hub, or then a home, like let's call it like this, is where people are there because they are physically there, but it doesn't, it has no correlation with what they are interested in. It's not because of specific interest or passion. It's just they are there and they belong to that hub, that home. For me, yeah, maybe nomadism. I'm not a nomad, so I can't talk about nomadism so much. Maybe nomadism is only a lifestyle, then it should be only an initiative, or maybe it's a home. Like I still believe there is a need for a home for people who don't, they are not in physical hubs. Why do I say that? Also because I really think retreats are an amazing way to make people come together, and the retreats are usually organized by ambassadors of a hub, of a home. And for example, if I would become an ambassador of a non-physical hub, I would create those retreats. I'm really excited about that idea, and I would really work on this aspect as well. Like I really see the Cosmic Hub, or whatever name it is, as a new home for sandboxers, not as a thread of common interest. Because of course it could look like this because of what I share, but I really see it more as a, I don't want to use identity, it's the same, I don't really care about identity, but at least a ground. I want to offer a ground for people who don't have that physical ground. Because people like me don't care, and there is Eddie Aran, for example, who is in Australia, he doesn't care as well, he's just in Australia because he's in Australia, you know. So there are some people who really don't care where they are grounded, but I think that in Sandbox it would be interesting to offer a non-physical ground, and then maybe the Nomad Hub will disappear as a Nomad Hub, but there will be this non-physical ground. I don't know, but what I want to share is that there is a need for a ground, for a home where people exactly as we would open, I don't know, there is a new city. Like Malta, for example, there would be a hub in Malta. I mean, it's not a problem if there is Sandboxer in Malta to open a hub there. So for me, I don't see, logistically speaking, a problem of opening a new non-physical hub.
So I need just one precision from you. I don't think I understand. What we're saying, whether it's Michael, myself, or Jillian, is that we recognize the need for a non-place geographical hub. I actually would even go so far as to say that I think it represents the true vision of what Sandbox is. It is not supposed to be a local thing. So I definitely recognize it. I think it's needed. I also think that people should choose their geographical hub. They should only be attached to one, but they can choose to be attached to whichever hub they want, regardless of where they're located. Now, so we agree with this. My personal recommendation would be and kind of like what Jillian said, would be to transform the Nomad Hub into a non-physical place. I don't want to say virtual hub because it makes it sound like it's a non-existing hub. I think it's a real hub. It's just a non-geographic, non-place hub, like a utopia hub, non-place hub. Nowhere hub, if you want, but same thing. Nowhere, I think, is not a good term. So maybe finding a term that's not as global hub. It could be a global hub. Once again, my definition of it has always been by the negative of it's not a geographical location. It's like you're not attached to a geographical location for whatever reason. Not just because you're far from a hub, but also maybe because you do not wish to be constrained, attached to a geographical hub. So that's fine. Now, for what you were saying that the Cosmic Hub, and on the other hand, I see a tension. I mean, I see a problem, let's say, if we start creating several non-place hubs, the same way I would see a tension if we were starting to create a Paris Hub 1 and a Paris Hub 2 with or a San Francisco, if you want, a San Francisco technical hub and a San Francisco non-technical geographical hub. Like, I would have an issue with this, and I have the same difficulty with two separate non-place hubs, one being a Cosmic Hub and then one being a Nomad Life hub. So
yeah, and that was the exact thing I thought of when you were mentioning the Malta example. Was I think the better analogy is like, if there were a few people in the San Francisco hub that felt like there are too many creatives and designers, like, we're going to start San Francisco Technical Hub. And that would just be a shame because it would reflect an atomization and fragmentation of the diversity that exists in the community. And so I think what we're saying is, like, I think everyone agrees it's about finding those meaningful conversations and connections and a sense of shared journey with people that you feel aligned with. But it's just the dual function. Like, how do we create both the public? They say, I mean, you can think about this the way people think about cities, societies, states. Like, what are the public spaces of Sandbox that are the kind of commons where you encounter people that are not necessarily like you? What is your experience of that? And then what is your experience where you're able to find the people that you feel more of an alignment with? And I think, like, the challenge, again, we're I mean, the proposal as it stands is, I'm sure, would lead to the immediate effects would be healthy, would create space for people to connect in more meaningful ways. It could be a really beautiful thing. I think the long-term effects is if we create a principle whereby, if you don't feel a sense of home, in the sense of, I don't identify with the hub that I'm in, then I would just create a new hub. And then everyone in that hub would be like me, and all the people that we would recruit would be like me, and then we would sort of continue to become more and more, optimized to be like this certain identity. that to me feels like it ultimately leads to the collapse of what makes Sandbox a really spectacular and special place, which is like the integration of people that you feel like for whatever reason, and I still don't know that we figured this out, you trust, that are going to be open with you, that you can connect with, that you can learn something from, but are not necessarily like you. That to me is like the great hope of Sandbox.
Yeah. I mean, that's for sure. Like, I really want to be clear that my proposal is definitely not about bringing only like-minded people together, because Sandbox is this, you know. So that's the big thing. So when I say about the Cosmic Hub, it's more about like maybe this was also to detach the non-physical hub from the nomadic identity, because the nomadic identity is so strong that when I'm there, I don't belong. But if it's just a ethereal hub, as you said, then I belong more there than a nomadic hub, you know. So it's not about like really, when I say about the Cosmic Hub, it was just like, as I say, working title. I felt the need of having a hub that is non-physical and that is not about nomadism.
Yeah, and to be clear,
and then I bought that idea because this is part of me, of course. Like I like that change, and maybe this is only an initiative, and it doesn't have to be with the localization. Yeah, I'm open for a lot of things, but yeah, like as we're like, there's a little conversation going on the chat as well with Jillian, and yeah, maybe is this like reframing the Nomad Hub to just be like location independent hub, and then moving the nomadism thread as an initiative.
Yeah, and to be clear, it's not just that I think it's not just an aversion to creating this new thing. It's like, I want your voice as a non-nomadic person in the like non-physical hub or whatever, you know, like I think the hub that exists now that Jillian runs, whatever we call it, needs people like you to create a more open or diverse community to exist in that. And for you to be a voice in recruiting, and for us to have even more people like that. And yet to preserve this beautiful thing, which is like, there are some people that really identify with this nomadic lifestyle. They care about it, and they want to create a community around it, just as maybe, you know, we can find and create spaces for people who want, you know, virtual writing partners, like you say, or something. Like, we should be able to, that should be a beautiful, wonderful thing, and these things shouldn't be in conflict with each other. I just see trying to architect what does the ideal Sandbox look like. To me, it strikes me that we need features of the community and functions that mean like, you will definitely get this experience where part of what you're attached to is something that is like a diverse and open space that anyone can kind of create a variety of things in, and that then within that space or across those spaces, there are also ways to go deeper and more narrow on specific areas of interest.
Oh, I just added an idea as well. Sorry if I jump in.
Okay.
I was wondering also, how big is the, like in terms of number, how big is the Nomad Hub currently? Because someone were mentioning this earlier about the size, like you need a certain size to keep a community active. And for example, I'm not sure, like as I said, I stand up for being an ambassador for the Cosmic Hub, but I'm not sure if it's like, if I would be able to be an ambassador of a large group, or maybe because half of this group will disappear because some people will move to some other homes. I don't know. But there is also this number aspect that is interesting to keep in mind when we think about a non-physical hub, because even in bigger cities, at some point, you don't reach enormous numbers because it's still at the scale of a city. But if it's at the scale of the world, I guess, like given the dynamics of the world nowadays, there will be huge people, I think, at some point being non-physical. And if the hub itself is like, I don't know, 300 people, how does it work? Do we need maybe to have this non-physical, just like, I don't know, I'm just throwing ideas here, but like European non-physical, North American non-physical, South of, you know, I don't know, I'm just throwing up ideas.
I think this is like the question of just Sandbox, because right now Sandbox kind of sort of runs with 1,000 and a bit, and you know, who knows what it gets as it get bigger. I just suggest, like, because we're about an hour into this meeting, and we have a few more things on the agenda. Maybe Magali, how about you and I can work on this, because I think it's a really good time to talk about this, and we can you know, talk about what it might look like for you to be an ambassador of this non-physical hub, what it might take to morph it. And I'm going to be talking as well with the other Nomad ambassadors about the future of the hub anyway, because I'll be stepping down and what that looks like, and etc. So how about, if that's all right with you, to kind of take the learnings from this call and see what we can create from there based on that.
Yes, I'm clear, like definitely open for more conversation with you on that topic. Yeah, we can just talk about it later, I think, yeah, and move on.
And I'll just address in 30 seconds, I promise, what you just said about the size of the non-physical hub. I actually think ultimately that the non-physical hub is the realization of the original Sandbox vision. So it will be a difficulty to have a I don't know, a 300 member non-physical hub, but at the same time, I think San Francisco and a bunch of other big hubs have the same difficulty of a 200 member hub, and it's difficult to get everybody, even if they're not that far away physically. So yes, it will be a difficulty, but I don't think the answer is to chop it, you know, to find a way to chop it up, chop it in smaller places. I think it's where you're actually trying to build the realization of what Sandbox ought to be, which is a group of people that are not constrained by local limits or local geographical limits. All right, that's all. So I've made my best to keep it short. So I'm okay. If you're all fine with, if you don't have anything else to contribute, I don't know, Jillian, go ahead. We can move forward to the rest of the meeting.
That was just what I was about to suggest, and to thank Magali for being here. But go ahead, Michael.
Well, I was just going to say it's an important topic, and so that's why we're this proposal is getting all this discussion. I think it gets to the heart of some questions about Sandbox, and it will be an evolving conversation. So let's continue it and move forward for the meeting. I think you're muted.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I would like to just wrap it to see if I understood it well, like from the state of all of you here, is that so right now we don't consider about opening a new hub, but there would be maybe a morphing of the only non-physical hub we have yet into something more neutral, and then we would open initiatives about interest that would be open to everyone. And then Jillian and I will dive deeper into this. Is this what we all agree on somehow?
So the way I understand it is the Nomad Hub is going to be looking for a new ambassador quite shortly, because Jillian would like to step down. I'm talking just personally, but I think you would be a great ambassador, Magali, for the Nomad Hub. And there, I think you will, with Jillian, discuss that transition towards a more neutrally named non-physical hub. Ethereal hub is great, if we want to call it that. And then on the side, you can start right away. Actually, I think, well, you just need confirmation with my two co-board members. We can start right away with what is called today an initiative group, which might be called in the future initiative hub, but that's still up for discussion. But an initiative group about the cosmic lifestyle that you were talking about. But that will be a second group open to any to a member of any hub about that lifestyle, if you want, or lifestyle, or that topic that you are passionate about, and yet at the same time continue working on having the Nomad Hub redefine what the Nomad Hub is with Jillian and the other members of the hub.
Yeah. I like that.
And I'll just quote Rafael Gomez. I can't see the last name, sorry. De Oliveira said that he agrees with changing the name of the Nomad Hub to a more neutral name and creating the initiative Hubs Group. It's Rafael from Sao Paulo. So just voice his.
Yeah. And also, just my last word, I agree with him too. And as I said, hubs for the initiatives, I'm not sure it works with. We have to understand, like, because I mean, language is still important. So it depends. Maybe in the initiative hubs, they don't have the same purpose of the local hub. So then hubs should maybe not be a hub. Like otherwise it's confusing.
They indeed don't, and I agree with you. It's been the words are difficult. Crafting words is difficult. And so yes, I kind of agree with you. It's not a good solution to have those initiative hubs. It should be initiative something else.
Yeah, I think groups works well.
Yeah. But I want each one of those initiative groups to understand that they are just as important as the geographical hubs, if not more, and that the representative of those groups need to be able to take decision or participate in the decision-making process within Sandbox.
I have a question.
Yes.
Because when you say as important as the other groups, the only difference I see is like the main important hub as right now is the possibility to recruit new people and organizing events like local retreats. So when you say you want the interest groups to be as important, or I don't know, do you talk about that? Do you talk about those initiative hubs would have this possibility to do their specific events and recruit people?
So I think we should table this discussion.
Yeah, we'll do that later. Of course,
it's a whole discussion, and maybe Luke, you could send the proposal that
of course
the ideas over, and then because it's just I agree those are all good questions, and that's why we can't talk about them all right now.
Yeah. I understand. Sorry,
Magali, I'll add you to the list of people for review. That will do this proposal for sure.
Yeah, let's move on. Sorry for this little.
That's why we have those board meetings anyhow. All right. Well, thank you very much, Magali and Aaron, for this. I guess we'll move to the rest of our agenda. Next item on the agenda, as soon as I reopen my agenda here, is the Community Council statement. Michael, if my memory is good, last board meeting we said we were going to issue a Community Council statement. How are we doing on that?
Yeah, I still owe us that. So I have a first outline of it, but I need to formalize it into a draft. I'll send it over.
All right.
So that's
do you need help on this or?
No, I have a vision for it. I just need to carve out time this weekend to finish it.
All right, and I think perfect. Jillian, do you have anything else to contribute on this? Or are you good?
No, I trust Michael.
That's good. Me too. So. We all trust Michael. Next item on the agenda is the Global Summit. Is any action needed? I guess I'll start with, I don't know if there's any action needed. There's a real question. I mean, I'd like some answers from Brandon about like what right now the cost per person would be. I don't think that anybody who answered the poll really thought that the tickets for the Global Summit could be $250. I think that if his working number right now is over $1,000, that would be too high. And that's regardless of the discussion we've initiated on sponsorships. So I think that's what I would like to ask him again, is what's the working number? What's the guesstimate right now with the ticket prices?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to monitor this situation in general because it seems like it's already been delayed once. There still are a lot of questions about the future of the summit. I agree. I think maybe they are. I would like to see more details about their thinking because I agree that a few things. I think they're worried about attendance, but as we all know, getting people to like vote on something is incredibly difficult. And so the expected yield on such a vote should be relatively low. And so if he gets 100 responses, I think you should count that as 300, you know? So
he got 250, so he got quite a lot of responses.
I mean, to me, that's amazing. Like, I think people will show up, so I wouldn't worry about that. In terms of the cost, I agree. There's a difference between what people would say is their preference versus what they're willing to pay. I think there is a number that is our upper bound, and it's just a question of like how realistically we can get to that. I agree we shouldn't worry about 250, but I think if we're going above $750, $800 with travel costs included, it starts to become pretty exclusive.
Yep.
I will add, I've been part of this community for a really long time, and I've never been to a global retreat because it's always been too expensive.
Yeah.
And I almost went to Croatia because you had tiered groups. I left like a really long comment for Brandon that I really apologize he had to read through. But I like the reason I said yes to going to the Kenya one was only because I assume there'll be tiered versions. And like I think it's meaningful. I'm already willing to put like whatever I have. Like I would spend $750 on it. But I do think that there's a lot of like perceived and real exclusivity in Sandbox, and that no matter what the price is, it's important to message it and like create the opportunities and even help the hubs help themselves to find ways to sponsor, help people sponsor cover costs, which I think they can also figure out on their own. It doesn't have to be the global responsibility to figure that out, because it does exclude people who are working on really meaningful things, but are like maybe artists or journalists and just like don't have that cash.
I guess my question in putting this, I put this on the agenda, and I was just sort of like, I know people have been asking about it and kind of wondering what's going on, and my question was just like, what does the board need to do? What do we need to do, if anything, to sort of be around, or do we need to have a call, or what should we do to like help, steward this in some way?
Well, I think one important question, but that's something that's been open since the kind of decision that the next global summit will be in Kenya, is to just assess, and I guess a call with Brandon. I can do another call with Brandon and the team on the global summit team, is what are price ranges, and that's what I haven't gotten really from them. Is I don't necessarily care much. I understand everything you've said, Erin. So I don't care. It's just I understand everything you said, Erin. But I think regardless of this, when we're just planning, we have to figure out what an average cost per person would be, because then you can build in a bunch of sponsorships. So you increase the price of the average ticket by 10-20%, like it was done last year, by the way. You increase the cost of each ticket by 10-20%, and then you do a sponsorship system, and of course the different ways for hubs to sponsor additional members. Here in Le Mans in Switzerland, we raised $800 to sponsor one member from India to come to the Croatia retreat. So I'm all about that. But really, what I need right now at this moment from them is the just knowing if it is even possible to have a retreat in Kenya where it costs less than $1,000 per person on average, to organize a 200 people retreat. Because that was my scare when we decided to go with Kenya without even knowing where we're going to organize the retreat, the global summit, was how do you even know that we can afford to do something in Kenya, where you have security, where you have the security cost and all the environmental and other things that need to be taken, that need to be paid for, that didn't need to be paid for in Croatia, for instance, or even in Panama. So to me, that's the first question I would ask them is, I need some guesstimate of is how expensive it is to organize something with 100, 200, 300 members participating.
Yeah, I agree. To me, it's concerning that we don't have more concrete numbers at this point to be able to make a decision about, like, do we need to start to change course? And I'm open to it. And yeah, I think, like, to me, the question of cost is as you say, it's not just about the top line cost. It's like, is the average cost low enough so that we can still reasonably charge people a premium over that, and that will be acceptable, while also then enabling us to, like, really bring down costs for at least a set of people. To me, my vision of the summit is accessibility is always the top goal, because the best feature of any summit are the other people that are there. And I'm happy to push and make the case to the community for whatever change we need to make, provided that we can reach that goal of making it as accessible as possible. So yeah, maybe it's about having a bigger call, like with the larger team. I've been trying to join their team calls, and Charles, at least before, was like somewhat reluctant on that, but maybe we can open up the discussion. I just feel like, yeah, I don't know. It's important to keep in mind that we've always conceived of the Global Summit as a critical and important piece of the community, but not something that is ultimately a board or centrally driven thing. It's something that is the product of really an initiative group that has taken upon itself to organize these things. There's also a philosophical question about how much we get into it, but I do think it is the case that the community expects us, whoever it is that they look to as the us, to be responsive to the question of the summit. And I think that probably includes us, whether we feel we signed up for it or not, to produce such an event. And I do think maybe the first step is to say, like, let's all get on a call where we can actually get into some more of these details. I don't know. I don't know if either of you have a thought on the best way to move forward, but I think and we're already in March, so.
Yeah,
I think maybe it's just about reaching out and kind of, asking straightforward the questions that we want to ask, and, maybe jumping on a call together or something like that. To just, I think that if straight answers are necessary, then straight questions are also necessary. So if it's something that we feel like we need to be involved with, and I truly have no opinion, actually, on where it is and on what's going on with it, except that I kind of like to attend if I can afford it. But anyway, I think it's just a matter of kind of seeing if we need to be involved, and if we do, then just asking the questions we need to ask and getting on the calls we need to get on.
Well, what about maybe the first step then? I agree, is to draft a list of questions that sort of like from the community, from the board to the group, and kind of formalize them a little bit. I like what you're saying about straight questions. I do feel like, yeah. Does anyone have bandwidth to just like draft 4 or 5 questions that are our key questions to them?
I'll get started on that.
Okay. I don't think we have to discuss what they are. I think it's pretty self-evident, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll just draft them, send it to you. You just confirm that you're okay with them, and
okay, cool.
I'll send. I was the first one to say that I thought that we shouldn't be involved in the Global Summit organizational effort. I think it's a beautiful thing that it's self-organized by a group of members, and I think it's a perfect example of what an initiative group, hub, whatever it's called, it could be, and what it can actually achieve. But it is true that we are getting questions, and we should request some answers, because we are being asked about it. All right, Jillian.
I was gonna ask to move on, which is, I think,
yes,
exactly what you were planning to do.
Exactly, that's what I was planning to do. So next thing is the secretary report. So Jillian, you have the floor.
I'm gonna do this in a minute or less. I got an email from the Dubai hub that they want to they were inspired by something. I think it was something we did. I don't know. They were inspired either way to revitalize their hub, and they had some questions for me, and they had some ideas. And I haven't read it since, but it's in the inbox, and it's on my to-do list to work with them. I think they wanted to make it more of a regional hub, which is an interesting idea considering what we've talked about today. So the point of that is that something might be happening, and I'll be working on it. And then we got some feedback on the recent newsletter. Henrik from Sweden just offered a really, really interesting and exciting idea that instead of introducing ambassadors by this kind of self-congratulatory bio, that's a very strong word, but basically not a bio about professional achievements, but actually about why they wanted to be an ambassador and what they're planning to bring to their hub and the kind of vision that they're looking for the Sandbox, which instead of who they are as professionals. And I just thought that was a really beautiful idea. And as we've talked here, the board, about the role of ambassadors and how that kind of works, I think it's just a cool way of maybe shifting that a bit. So I posted about it in a couple places, and people seem to be really receptive to the idea. So whenever I introduce the next ambassadors, probably Sao Paulo, I guess, I'll be asking Rafael, who's on the call now, and Melu to send me that kind of vision, and just maybe make a note of it in the next newsletter that this is kind of how we're going to be focusing on ambassadors going forwards. And that's all I have.
About this, when I saw the email, there was one other thing that I thought about, is that what Henrik was pointing towards, the idea that we are not, our quality is not measured by our achievements, is something that is not reflected in our manifesto. And I almost wanted to ask him to maybe make a proposal of an additional line in the manifesto that reflects that idea. I don't know if that's something that you would agree with or not.
Yeah, I definitely think it's worth looking into. I also think there's a broader question here, as I want to do, but I was really happy that Henrik wrote that, and I think there's maybe a bigger question about how do we culturally educate incoming ambassadors, because I just very much witnessed, I think, like a gap in that. I think that experience of seeing those bios was also reflected in in-person events, and I think like the community really champions itself on a culture of not being about accomplishments, not being about your professional context. Like, this is the one community that isn't that. And when you have new people stepping in to run and become ambassadors, maybe there is like, how do we orient them and align them such that there's that sense of what we are, and so that it would be self-evident that submitting bios like that is just sort of antithetical to what I feel like this group is convened to be at its core. I guess what I'm saying is, like, I very much agree with Henrik. I'm glad he spoke up about it, but I think the problem is maybe a little deeper, and it concerned me.
Well, it is, and we've seen that with the recruitment in one of the hubs, where there was a kind of a backlash or a tough discussion around the idea that some people were not accepted or were rejected, and the line that was given to them was, "Well, we don't think you're a I can't remember now what the term was,
Thought leader.
A thought leader." Here you go. So you're not leading enough thoughts, I guess. And I do believe that this is something that should be addressed. So that's why I was talking about that kind of like higher up discussion of the manifesto, because the manifesto is supposed to express our identity and our values.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this multiple times here as well, about the role of an ambassador and how we onboard people and etc. So I think it's all part of that same can of worms, shall we say.
But as a practical thing, I think it's a great idea to ask this, to do what you're doing, Jillian, to ask ambassadors to describe themselves with what their vision for the hub is rather than their achievements. So I'm all for that.
Sounds good.
All right, Jillian, is that it? No, nobody wants to add anything in there. Erin, Magali, everything's good.
I'll add, I'm happy to help. I'm in like a weird spot right now. I have a lot of free time, so I'm happy to help with some of the ambassador stuff. Just Jillian, tell me what you need, or if I can be helpful.
Yes, probably you can. I'll go back and think about it and come back to you.
Amazing.
Erin,
right.
you missed the kickoff in SF, but I think your energy was very much missed. So I think there's lots of opportunity for you to. I think Erin has always been a really good representative and someone who captures like the beauty of what Sandbox is and the energy. So I think Jillian, she could be a really good ally.
Nice. All right, I'll switch to, since you're talking, Michael. Well, let's go to the chair report.
So yeah, it's been a busy few weeks. So I apologize. I do want to get to that community council statement. So I'm going to make that a priority this weekend. The tech stuff I was able to move forward on a little bit. So I ran our first, and actually Erin has heard me go on and on about this, but our first modeling of the data within our community, which was a pretty interesting exercise using a technique called topic modeling, which I won't go into, but in case anyone's interested. And it's sort of fascinating. The data set of Sandbox conversations is somewhat difficult to analyze because it just was like really funny to read. So topic modeling is, and I'll just share this because I think it's interesting. It's a way of detecting different sort of distinct topic areas within a corpus of text. So a post might be about entrepreneurship, but it also might be about an event, for instance. And so to be able to detect that is a good way to start to structure concepts. And it's an unsupervised mechanic, so it just detects these sort of concentrations of frequency of ideas and doesn't necessarily label them or in some cases even know how many there are. It just sort of like detects this. And so there are a few different ways you could do it. I tried a few different examples, but in one of them, the results were like pretty useless because I think it was something like 13 of 16 of the found topic areas or groups, clusters, like included love as like one of the words. So it's just sort of like there are a number of different terms like family, love, community that just like show up in basically all the topics. And anyway, I thought it was like an interesting reflection on how we talk about the community in our posts and the frequency of certain ideas and concepts. I think at this point, from a data science standpoint, the word love should be thought of more as like punctuation than semantically significant. But anyway, so that was fun to do. But
it's a stop word, I guess.
Exactly. I actually did ultimately add it to my stop word list, so as well as community and family. Anyway, so I'm working currently on a new approach, which is more of a supervised approach, which at some point might mean that I reach out to people to help categorize some of the text examples we have. But I think that's a little more promising as a technique. Anyway, not critical thing, but I think I hope we get to something that's kind of really useful because it's been fun to play with. And as I said, it's an area of technology that I've been diving into separately. So it's sort of dual purpose for me. So unless anyone has any questions on that or thoughts.
I'm all good.
Feel the love. Governance proposal, I'll just touch on this briefly since this is, I'll let you run the ship on this, Luke, but I did, we are going to talk. I submitted a proposal. It's a more incrementalist proposal. And I'm looking forward to trading more ideas with you about that. But yeah, like looking forward to moving forward that process and having those discussions. So.
All right. No questions around. No. Well, actually, you know what? The governance. I'll just
jump
yeah. Right into the governance proposal. Danielle and I have, over the last month and a half, had over 10 hours to really merge our two proposals. We are done with that effort. We are, well, they're not completely merged. There are some areas where we have both proposals next to each other. But there's something that's a document that I think is makes sense and that people can understand and make comments on. Michael since then has made another proposal. We have a meeting with Michael, so the three of us, on Thursday. And I actually believe that it will be much quicker to do it with Michael, and that we should be able to do it in one sitting, hopefully. If not, we'll take the extra time. And therefore, I envision that, or I believe that late next week, maybe early the following week, we'll be able to share that document with an early crowd. So I and Daniel's vision is that we should get the approval of 50 members before we share it with the community. So we want or approval or feedback, if you want, from 50 members until we release it to the community and say, hey, here's what we're thinking of for governance, and we'd like to put this to a vote at some point. So to get 50 people to read it, I guess that will take us all the way to the end of April. And after the end of April, the idea, so my plan is all of April, late March, early in all of April, we get this feedback from 50 members of the community that have shown some interest in governance. And then then May 1st, we would share this document with the entire community, keep the discussion open for a month to get, I guess, some comments if people have, but I would imagine mainly questions from about the document, rather than really proposals to update the proposal. And then at the end of May, so like June 1st, put this proposal, except if there is any major disagreement with it, put that proposal to a vote on June 1st for a period of, I guess, 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, usually what we do. Like we open it, we announce 2 weeks and we give an extra week, which would mean that end of June, we would finally have a governance for Sandbox. Well, we would have a new governance for Sandbox, because we already do have a governance for Sandbox. So we would have a new governance by the end of June.
And our term will be just about a year.
So, and that's the next thing, is that the proposal we're making, and I haven't talked about it with you, Jen and Michael, but so I will touch on it, is that the proposal we have put forward asks or proposes a six-person board, or six trustee board, and the idea is to have staggered elections, meaning that every year 3 of them are replaced. This to me is kind of a learning from the transition we've gone through, which I think has been more difficult than it needed to be, not because Tia has not been cooperative, but because Tia has been busy. And having those staggered elections means that you're never replacing the entire board, and so that transition period can be much less difficult, because I guess one thing with Tia is that after she relinquished her chairmanship, she had to be on a book tour, or like a tour, for almost 6 months, like until the end of the year, and it made and she was extremely busy, which I understand, and so it made it difficult for interacting with her, even though she's been really helpful and she's always been open to answering us. It could take more time than it really needed. So anyhow, that's why we're proposing the staggered elections, which would also mean that the trustees would be elected for 2 years, 3 of them replaced every year. If everything goes according to plan, end of June we have a governance, and we can call for people to propose. For people to postulate or give their candidacy to I can't find the word for some reason, but anyhow, to run for trustee during the entire month of July, make the vote during that July, early August timeframe, and announce the 3 additional trustees in August. That would be elected for 2 years, which would also mean that we would continue, Jillian, Michael, and I, for another year, if that's okay with you. But that's, of course, all hypothetical based on whether the proposal, the Board of Trustee structure is adopted or not. So that's how I envision the entire thing. But I guess, Jillian and Michael, that my question will be, if that was to be it, would you be okay with continuing for an additional year?
I hadn't thought about it, but potentially.
All right. In worst case, there's a
it's kind of the same. It's like counting chickens before they hatch a bit, but whatever.
It's an elegant solution to the cadenced approach. I think at the very least, we should be willing to provide some overlap for sure. And I'm definitely willing to do that to ensure continuity into the next system.
Likewise. All
right. Perfect. So anyhow, that's where we are with the governance. I'm confident that we're going to I've given a lot of extra time to because I think I've sinned in the past by trying to be a bit too aggressive on the time on the schedule to get those things adopted. So here I think we have a lot of time to get everything done and to aim for that milestone of August 1st when we have our first anniversary as trustees. And I really, no matter what happens, I really think that at our 1-year milestone, we need to have come up with something with governance. So no matter what happens, I want to have something to say about governance by our first anniversary, because I think that was one of the reasons why we were elected, and it was one of our mandate of our one of the point in our mandate. So. Does anybody have questions about this?
No, keep charging ahead.
Right. Do I have the latest version of the proposal, Luke? Because I think I want to make sure I can speed up our process.
Yes, I sent you. Did I send you the document again? I will resend you the document. It's a Google Doc. The template was good for initial work, but then when we started actually writing the proposal, it makes much more sense to be on Google Docs.
Okay. Yeah, I remember seeing the like slides.
Yeah, so we're not on slides anymore. Okay, cool. Even though that was really useful for us to discuss with Daniel to compare our proposals, and it's good for you as well. But we're still using that format, even though those 5 or 6 big categories. But it's now all in a chapter format on a Google Doc, and I will share it with you again.
Cool, great.
Next item on my agenda is the accounting, the never-ending accounting. I've asked Tia what the status was on this. She didn't get any answers. She didn't get any news back from the accountant, so I kindly requested that she send a message to our accountant, to our auditor, to ask him if he had an ETA for our accounting. And so I will keep you updated on this, and I will remind Tia or ask Tia again in a couple of days to if she got any answers from the auditor. So this is still never ending, but I am hopeful that at some point I will have an accounting system.
Can you like CC us all on that, and then maybe we can just jump in and try to move things forward or something?
That works. I'll do that.
I'm just trying to, not that I don't, I'm just trying to think how we could, just bring the urgency of this forward maybe a little bit. I don't know.
I agree. So I'll ask Tia again after she sent a message, and then once I have a return from the auditor, we can discuss, or I can start a discussion to see if there's a way to incentivize our auditor to go faster.
Cool.
All right. Well, that's well. The last thing I didn't discuss here is that last weekend I finally took a look inside the Sandbox.is code, and it seems like I could probably do the things we had discussed about that news page with a Google spreadsheet, like the Google spreadsheet is the backend to have a little news page on the website. We can discuss if it's still a good idea to build. Maybe I'll just build that. It will be a good exercise for me, and then we can see if it's actually useful. But other than that, I also will probably work on a governance page on the website, a proposal at least for it, or some code for it, because the proposal I think would really benefit from a hypertext type format, because there are a lot of redundancies in any governance systems, and also need to send to like examples and other things that would highlight highlight the reasons why we're proposing some things or others, without having a 50-page long document. So those are two things on the tech side. Oh, and I've also built a first reaction commerce Sandbox website just locally, and it works, but I think it's also one of those commerce websites. It's a lot of the details that need to be ironed out with people that have more expertise than I do, but technically it works.
Cool. Well, like I said, I'm happy if I can help with anything. Let me know.
Yeah. So the shop website is something I really want to push, because I think long term is something that would fit quite nicely into the community, and it's also something that's been requested. And I do believe that something that's much more open source than a Shopify or even Magento would make much more sense. But I don't know. Maybe it's. But once again, I'll need some help on the nitty-gritty of the technical security and requirements and all those. But it's still on the back burner for me. It's more something that I'm doing on the side for the fun of it.
Cool.
All right. Well, that's it for the treasury report. Do we have anything else to add for the board meeting?
I think that was it. Yeah.
Next meeting. So I have to admit, I've been pretty busy for the last month, and I'm going to be pretty busy in the next 2 weeks as well. I will kindly request that we do not have a meeting until the week of the March 26th, if possible.
It's okay for me. I mean, this time is usually okay for me, or I can at least make it happen, usually.
All right, Michael, what's your schedule?
I think that's fine for me. Yeah.
So
should we just say maybe like the 28th?
Yeah.
The 28th sounds fine to me. Yes, indeed.
Let's just throw that on there, and then if we need to adjust, we can always.
All right.
And last thing is just a summary or bullet points.
But this would go out, we would post this, or this is for the newsletter, which would go out at probably after the next meeting, right?
I mean, I think this would be now just as a super quick update on what was covered in today's meeting.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think we could write it. Let's see, where's the agenda? I mean, we talked about like the Cosmic Hub proposal, governance proposals.
Yeah, maybe call for volunteers for people who want to do a deep dive in or not deep dive, don't call it that. More like who want to review, to be part of the exclusive group of 50 people who will give will be given early access to the proposal, to the governance proposal.
Yeah.
I think basically the most important things for this meeting is the cosmic thing, and maybe mention we're talking to the Global Summit team and the governance proposal, and that's it. So, yeah.
Okay. Anything else? I don't think so. I think those are the main things. I can write it up right now.
I mean, I can do like the same thing I did last time, which is like a 1 minute thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in initiative group, Magali, to answer your question, I'm not quite sure this is a core point. I think it's still a discussion as to, and it's part of the governance, for instance, of how we actually create this topic or this subject, or how you name it.
I think it's with this summary, we're not going to go into in depth anyway. I mean, I don't mind. I can do a 1 minute just skimming over this was this, and if you want to know more, get in touch, basically.
Okay. But I would discuss it within the practical subject of the Nomad Hub. Does that make sense, or?
No. What was it?
Well, I would talk about the example of I would talk about the Nomad Hub, or the cosmic discussion, and the idea of having that nomad lifestyle and cosmic lifestyle, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just going to be about the idea of a non-physical hub and what it looks like and how it works and how it's different from lifestyle groups, basically. I mean, interest groups or interest groups or however I call it, but yeah, basically, it's just, yeah.
Okay, well, I do want to go for it. I'm fine with it. All right.
Cool. Okay, guys.
Okay. At the end of the agenda, I just put a draft of that, but feel free to tweak.
Cool. Yep. All right, and then we'll just pencil in the 28th and go for that.
Cool. Sounds good.
Perfect. All right.
All right.
Well, have a good night, day, and it was fun to have you all. And yes, Rafael, I agree, it was fun.
For sure. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you all for joining. Yeah, that was probably like one of the most widely attended board meetings we've ever had. So
absolutely.
All right.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you.